Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is start out with the two driver boards. So I'm gonna build those together, and then Bob, the kit build instructions, which are very well written and very, very nicely explained steps. I don't think you can go wrong if you follow them carefully. But there's a second set of instructions for driver boards. So this is driver board manual, and this tells you how to install, build the driver boards. It's pretty straightforward. It's another parts list. So I did a parts list check, and everything, all the parts are there. And just to talk about in the unboxing video, these are the sockets I was talking about that I thought was missing. I thought I was missing two 9-pins, and really what I saw in the package was a wrapped up pair, two wrapped up pairs of sockets, and I thought it was just one socket and two sockets, but actually when you unwrap it from the wax paper, you can see that it's actually two sockets held together. So there's actually two 9-pins in each one, so all 4 pins are there. And I guess the lesson is, make sure you check carefully before you email Bob and ask him questions, because Bob probably thought it was pretty silly that he had explained that, well, there's 2 sockets wrapped together, Rob, and then 2 of those in the bag, and so there's 4 sockets. So it's fine though, but Bob was pretty gracious about it. He said, no big deal, you know, people make mistakes. And, you know, just easy enough that it's 2 sockets are there. So that's all good. So I have the 4 sockets. So in the unboxing I was incorrect. There was no parts missing. All the parts are there. They're all packaged very nice. You can see with the instructions, and you can see that everything's all bagged up very nice, and all the resistors and everything's all there, and the capacitors and the other components are all there, and the instructions are pretty easy to follow. These are boards to solder, so you can see the components. Some will be soldered on this side of the board, which is considered the top side of the board, where the resistor numbers are marked. So that's the top side of the board, and this is the bottom side of the board. Some components will be installed on the bottom side and soldered on the top, and most of the components will be installed from the top and soldered on the bottom. It's pretty easy to follow. It's not very many components. You can see there's 2 tube sockets, there's several resistors and some capacitors, so it should take only about an hour a board maybe, or something. Am I in the view here? Yeah. So it should be a really good, easy kit to make here for the driver board. It's not very complicated. If you've got good soldering skills, you can do it. I'm just using a nice pencil soldering gun with temperature control. So I got some good 6040 solder, rosin core, of course, and it should go pretty good. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 2 boards, and then once we do 2 boards, we'll take a look at the chassis, and we'll start assembling both chassis. Like I said, I'm going to parallel part of the build and then series the build. So parallel part is the 2 driver boards, and then the 2 chassis hardware installation. And after that, just do 1 amp right to completion and testing, and then before I start the 2nd amp. I think that's a good method to use. I'm going to try that just to get the chassis installation, all the hardware and the chassis over with, so I can just concentrate on the wiring after. So I'm hoping for today, at least for this video, that we're going to do the driver boards and the chassis assembly. There we go. There's one of the driver boards completed. I'll take a look there. Right side up. It's the top side of the board. Turned out pretty well. I first started soldering. I had a tip I couldn't tin very well, and it was dirty, so the first couple solder connections weren't working well, so I changed the tip on my soldering iron, make sure I got a clean tip. I can do some nice clean solder joints. So it's not as good as I would have liked to turn out. There's some solder joints that didn't possibly go through like I like to on the other side. Looks like the tube sockets all did well though, and everything looks pretty good, pretty straight, nice layout. I tried to make it look neat a little bit if I could, and keep the lettering, as you can see, the lettering on the cap. Got the focus nice there, I'm not sure. With the letterings of the cap, so it's pointing upwards and you can see it, and you have to make sure this little transistor is in the right place with the flat side towards the socket. So those things to pay attention to. These are nice and straight in their squares. Look pretty good. The underside, the Russian caps have to be off the board a little bit. They put the heat shrink on the sides there, and so that looks pretty good. Looks like it turned out okay. Cleaned a little bit with alcohol in the back. It's not very clean. I'm going to do some more cleaning. It looks like I'm going to clean it quite a bit more. It seems to spread around. It's pretty gucky rosin on there, so make it look nice on the board. Get rid of the rosin there, so it looks pretty good. So that was one board, and I guess that'll be the end of part 2, I think, because it's probably about a 10-minute video now. The time lapse and everything is long enough, so just got to repeat this on the second board. It's pretty straightforward. There's not too many components, as you can see, and you just take your time. You solder nice and follow instructions. Very easy to follow. They're all numbered and everything goes in one place. Go around. Most important thing is to watch these caps, these electrolytics, that the positive and negative orientation is correct. Don't mix those up. So make sure that the positive lead is on the square hole that's in there, and it'll say positive, so the long lead is on the positive. Make sure that's really done correctly. And so really for orientation, it's just the electrolytic claps have to be in positive and negative. This has to be with the flat side towards the socket. And sockets, of course, can only go in one way. These can only go in one way because they got 3 leads, so those go in properly just to make sure they're straight. So that's the only thing to worry about on that. It's pretty straightforward soldering. It's not a big deal. It took a little while. I'm not sure how long, an hour maybe, an hour to do the board, I think. And that was going slow and taking it easy, trying to make it nice bends and try to keep these all kind of the same, with the bands in the same direction, things like that, just for aesthetics. It turned out pretty nice. Should be good. It's going to work, I hope. And that's basically the board. Oh, for the jumper wires, let's put a jumper wire across these 2 pins. And what I did is I just took one of the leads I snipped off from the resistors. I took one of the leads that were left out, and I ran that lead across. I soldered that, and that's that. So that works out pretty well. And can't complain about that. So that's that. So that's end of part 2, and part 3 will be the chassis hardware, installing all the hardware on the chassis, and we'll see how that goes, and we'll make that a part 3 video, I guess. So I don't think there's enough time today to do that. See how long this video is after I edit it. I'm not sure how long. I may include the chassis video, but probably not. Okay, so thanks for joining me, and see you in part 3. There we are. There's the 2 boards completed. It took me, I think, about 3 hours. I think it started about 7:15 in the morning, and it's now 10:18 in the morning. So I think I did both boards in about 3 hours. That includes, fooling around with the camera and everything. So I think you can call it 3 hours, probably an hour and a half each board. Take your time, make it nice. That's what they look like. It's looking pretty nice. They look very nice, clean. I tried to make them look the same, so everything, all the resistors are pointing the same way with their band colors and stuff on both boards, and make sure that the Jensen caps are right there, very nice Jensen caps, that the lettering's on top so you can see their values. Then on the bottoms of the board, let's see, did the paper and oil caps are both in there, and they have the heat shrink tubing, and they're spaced above the board. Better look at that there. Spaced above the board, we'll focus. Spaced above the board, 1/8 to 1/4 on both of them. So, and then have the other 2 smaller electrolytics there, and we soldered nice. I cleaned that board with alcohol. I don't like the way it looks. It's leaving some white residue behind or something. So I'm not going to clean this board, I don't think. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. But they turned out, looks like they turned out well. Hopefully I put everything in the right place. Pretty sure it did. Put everything in the right place, and there's your two boards. They look great, and I'm sure they're going to work. Potentiometers, I have them turned completely clockwise this way with the tubes in the front, so I think that's all the way down. That's counterclockwise, facing where the tubes are. So I think I'm both counterclockwise, just a minimum on them. Pretty sure that's how they end up being down. I think so. Anyway, so that'll probably be it for this. On the next video, it's just going to be the chassis assembly. Okay, well, thanks for part 2. Stay tuned for part 3, and we'll look at the chassis assembly and get all the hardware in the chassis.